leadership book of all time. Uh, 1 or 2 years ago, he actually came out with the 25th anniversary. Most of you guys will have the 10th anniversary edition. There's not a whole lot different in the 25th. There's a couple of updated things. Um, I want to say there's been 20 or 30 million copies of this book sold. Like I say, number one leadership book probably ever written. And the way we do this is we can do things called lunch and learns. You guys ever heard of a lunch and learn? Where you go to a business, you do like a 45-minute presentation, and then they have things what they call a mastermind. You guys heard of a mastermind? Anybody? All right. So when you think of a mastermind, I like to think of it like a beach ball. Okay, a beach ball's got pinks, yellows, whites, blues. Okay, but if the beach ball is deflated, it's not much use, right? Well, if you try to blow up the beach ball, but you leave off one of the colors, what happens? The beach ball is not going to inflate, right? So that's what I look at each of you guys as. Each of you guys are a color in my beach ball. And the only way this mastermind is going to work is if we have input from everybody. All right. If I stand up here and I don't have input from the other parts of the ball, then it's just going to deflate. I'm just standing up here talking. Okay. So that's what masterminds are. So tonight, what I'm going to go over is I'm going to go over exactly what the mastermind is. I'm going to introduce the book. And then what you guys see is a participant guide. We'll start on that next week. Next week, we're not going to be able to go over all 21 chapters in an 8-week session. Okay, if I was doing this with a business or if I was doing this with a client, something like that, we may go over 2 or 3 chapters a week and really push it. Right? We've got a pretty decent size. There's 6, one online. There should be some other people coming. 10 is about the most you want to have in a mastermind group. After 10, you start losing the audience. You want to start a second. Okay? So, when you think about the 21 laws of leadership, it's been in 47 different languages. Okay, this is what John goes around the world. They were just in Argentina last week, I think it was, and they teach this to governments. This has been turned into a school system where they now teach it in the education. A lot of different programs. So over the next 8 weeks, what we'll do is we'll pick a couple of the chapters, and then we'll deep dive on those topics, and we'll deep dive on those specific chapters. Okay, if you take IT or IS 291, whichever it is, the workforce development internship class, this is the textbook I use. So I use this textbook for the whole thing. So one of the things I want to start out with before I get into this is, and I've asked you guys, I think this before in other meetings, but when I say leadership, what's the one word that comes to mind? I think I probably asked everybody in this room, but we'll see what you guys remember.
One word?
One word.
Influence.
Leadership is influence. Nothing more. If you read the beginning of this book or you read the beginning of John's book, leadership is nothing more about than influence. Okay? Now, influence can be used in a negative way also. So we don't want to think about that. So one of the things I want to start off with is this. Your perspectives determines your attitude, my attitude towards you. Okay? And I want you to look at these 3 comments. And there's a space in here for a reason. Okay? If I see you as weak, I will help you. Pretty good statement, right? Everybody's like, yeah, pretty good idea. If I see you as broken, I will fix you. Pretty good idea, right? What's the caveat to these first 2? You're assisting somebody?
But you're not.
I'm assisting someone. I'm not giving them an opportunity to learn. Not what I'm looking for, but okay. Think about it a little deeper. I'm better than you. I'm fixing you. I'm helping you. I'm putting me above you. Okay. I'm seeing you as something that needs help or that needs fixing, and it's putting me on a pedestal. What about the last one? If I see you as valuable, I will serve you. Now I'm back on your level. Okay? So leadership can be used in a very bad way. Okay? You guys probably fall in one of these four categories right here, right now. Okay? When you think about needing to change, Joe, I'll read them, sorry. 4 reasons you will make a change in your life. Number 1, you've been hurt enough, you have to. You've been fired from a job, you've been broken up with, something negative has happened, something's bad, you've been hurt, and you have to change. Okay? The second one is you've seen enough and you're inspired to. Something's happened, you've learned something, you've gone to school, you've seen classes, you've met somebody, you've done something, and it's inspired you to make a change. Okay? You've learned enough that you want to. Okay? Maybe you've learned, you've taken a class, and now you're like, man, that's great. I want to give back. Justin, that's your big thing, is you want to give back. Now you're learning your place. Where am I and what can I learn because I want to? And the last one is you've received enough and now you're able to. And that's what you're here for. Now you're here to learn. You're here to receive so that you guys can turn around and help the person here and help the person here. Okay? There's one more thing in leadership that we have to focus on first. And this was my nemesis. This was my Goliath. This was my everything. And those of you that know my story know that I was 8 hours from death. I was in an ambulance and the guy told me in 8 hours they're picking out your pallbearers. I had to be put there by God because I was so conceited and I was so arrogant that it was only about me. I thought I was a great leader. I've been promoted to manager every job I've been in. When I started at a lumber company, they told me it would take 3 years to be a department manager. I laughed at them and I did it in a year and a half. They told me it would be 5 years before I could be an assistant manager. I laughed at them and did it in 3. I thought I was great. And all you had to do was ask me. I had the best shoes, I had the best watch, I had the best clothes, I had the best everything. Because I was the crap. Right? I wasn't conceited. I was convinced. That was my story, right? But then when I started really to learn about leadership, the first thing I had to learn is I must get over myself. Right? So John wrote this, and John actually made a song out of it. He went to Nashville, and he's got 3 or 4 songs that are already out. Eventually, it's going to be a whole album. But this is a song called Get Over Myself, or Get Over Yourself, one of the two, I forget. But here's how it reads. I have to find myself to know myself. Okay, so when we start out, we got to find out. That's why I asked you guys to do these intake forms. Where are you? What do you want? What is your why? You know, if the other book, if you take my class, is the Simon Sinek Why. Define your why. I've got to know myself to be myself. Okay, I've got to know who I am and what I stand for. What is my why? Why am I really doing this? Okay, so I've got to know myself so I can become the better myself. I've got to be myself to improve myself. I've got to really look inside and know where I'm at, right? Before I can start improving, right? I've got to be a better improved myself before I can get over myself, okay? I've got to learn truly who am I? Truly what is my gift? Truly what can I do to get out of my own way? And then when I get over myself, I can give myself to you. Right? So if you think about this lyric to a song and what he teaches in these books, and then you bring it back over here, bring it down to if I see you as valuable, I can serve you. If I get over myself, I can give myself to you. And if I now received enough that I'm able to. Everything in leadership is about what I can do for someone else. One of the things you guys are going to learn is the difference between a leader and a manager. Okay? A manager is a title. Hi. A leader is a title. Okay? A leader says you must do this because I have authority and I tell you to do it. Okay? That doesn't make you a leader. Okay? That makes you a manager. We've all had managers. Okay? A manager walks up a ladder and he's stepping on top of hands as he's coming up the ladder. That's what I did. I worked harder than you. I worked more than you. I did whatever I could to stand out from you, and I got promoted. But I was never a leader. I was always a manager. Okay. Once I learned to get on that ladder and stick my hand down and bring somebody up that step behind me, that's when I became a leader. Okay. Every step I take, I'm taking it with me. John, in his books, he talks about a leadership dance. Anybody ever heard that or seen it? Okay. I got to walk one step in front of you so I can bring you with me. I got to stay right beside you so you know we're together. And I got to be able to walk one step behind you to push you forward. But as a leader, I've got to know where in that dance are we. Okay? Leadership is about influence. Okay? If I lose my team and nobody believes in me, nobody has a common ground with me, nobody has a vision with me, I start becoming a manager very fast. You know, there's an ancient proverb that John talks about and says, if a leader's taking a walk and nobody's following him, is he leading or is he just taking a walk? Okay. People have to be willing to follow you, right? People have to be willing to say, I want to know what that guy has, right? I want to come to a Thursday meeting with 7 other people and I want to learn so I can be where that person is. Okay. That's leading. The minute you guys think I'm managing, you're going to stop coming. The reason you guys are here is because you know or you believe that my goal is for all of you guys to be better. If you didn't believe that as individuals, you wouldn't be here, right? So it's about influence. Right now, I take it very serious that I have influence over you guys, right? Something that sometimes can be very daunting, okay? It can be very scary to think next Saturday, Andrew's mom's going to walk up to me and she's going to introduce herself. And to think that her son has put dedication, time, and effort into me, that's a very big burden to carry, right? Because what if I mess up? What if I make a mistake and I crush one of his dreams? Or if I make a mistake and he starts to see me differently? Okay? So being about leadership is being able to get over yourself and putting the interest of everyone else before yours. Okay? And if you think back to one of the best managers you've ever had, you'll start thinking they probably did something for you above and beyond. And when you start thinking about the worst managers you've ever had, you probably start thinking they didn't do anything for the team, they didn't do anything for themselves, it was all about them. Right? So some of the things that we're going to talk about in this book is the law of the lid. I've talked to you guys in different classes about the lid. A lot of guys will ask me, should I get an associate? Should I get a bachelor? And I walk you guys through a process of what I call the ceiling. In this book, it's about the law of the lid. We'll go over more of that in a minute. The law of influence. You know, recognizing the leader is influence, nothing more. Right? I'm a leader because I'm influencing you guys. I have put out something out there that you believe if you follow it, you're going to be better off. Right? The law of process. Liz? Emphasizing leadership develops daily, not in a day. You're not going to leave here today at 5 o'clock and be a leader. Okay? You're going to leave here today one step closer to becoming where you want to be as a leader. I can't define what leadership is for any of the 8 of you. You guys have to know where it is. Okay? Navigation. Learn how to chart a course and lead others through it. How many of you have met with me and the first thing I ask you is, where are we going? Okay? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Do you want to go to a bachelor's degree? Do you want to get a master's degree? Do you want to get a doctorate? Are you 2 years and out and I'm going to work? I can't help you if I don't know which path we're going. I can't navigate your path for you. Everybody's different. You know, some people have your mind made up. You know you're going to a certain college. You know they have a 2-2 program. You've already met with them. You're already there. Some of you are still trying to figure out your major. Am I going to be this or am I going to be that? Some of you already know I'm 2 years and out. I got to get to work, and that's just the season of life I'm in. And that's great. That allows me to know what course can I navigate with you. Okay? And every one of you, I think, that's met with me one-on-one should understand that this is I'm with you. I will be with you every step of the way. The law of the inner circle. Have you had me in class? Everyone else has had me in class. How many times have I mentioned the word network in one of our classes?
Hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times. Your network is your net worth. Okay? The law of the inner circle. Understand the impacts of those closest to you. You will become the 10 closest person you surround yourself with. You surround yourself with Eeyores. The world's always falling. I'm never going to make it in life. That's where you're going to end up. You surround yourself with millionaires that get up every morning at 4 a.m. They make their bed. They take cold showers. They do everything right. They work their butt off all day long. They come home. They bring it home. That's what you're going to become, because so you become the 10 closest people you surround yourself with. So the law of the inner circle. The law of empowerment. Recognizing the power of giving others responsibility. Okay? One of the toughest things for leaders to learn is to walk away. How many of you love to be micromanaged? You like your manager in business and you want them talking about everything you do. Is there anybody that really likes that? Right? That is one of the key strengths of learning to be a leader, is learning to delegate and trust. Okay? That's tough. The law of empowerment. There's a whole chapter on that. Learning to say, trust the follow-up. Right? Set clear expectations. Okay? I can't just say, I want this done. See you later. I just set you up to fail. You don't know when, you don't know why, you don't know how, you don't know any of that. So it's the power of empowerment. Teaching that. The law of the picture. I will show you guys a picture, and you're both going to see something completely different. All 6 of you may see something completely different. Okay? We see the world where we are. Okay? If I'm a half full kind of person, that's how I'm going to judge the world. If I'm a half empty person, that's how I'm going to judge the world. Okay? I can't see life from your perspective. You can't see my life through your perspective. Okay? But we have to learn to find common ground in those areas. Being a leader is about finding that common ground. He wrote a book. It's my second favorite book outside of this. That's a fifth. It's probably my favorite book. This is my third favorite book. But the others are both about growth and communication. But everyone communicates to you connect. It's the favorite book you get. That's what I was talking to Justin about the other day. If anybody would ever walk up to me and go, we need a guest speaker right now, that's the one that's in my back pocket. That's the one I can do from memory, and I can do it all day long. Okay? Everyone communicates to you connect. And it talks about the difference between communicating with people and connecting with people. Huge difference. Okay? The other one is the 15 Laws of Growth. That's probably my second favorite book, and then this one's my third. So, people do what people see. Okay? You will mimic who you believe in. If you go through the 4 stages of your life, okay, 0 to 2 to 4, adolescence, somewhere around in there, you kind of mimic what you're told. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Then the next stage is you start seeing people around you, you start doing what they do, right? Then you get a little older and it's okay, well, my dad's an electrician, or my dad's a cop, or my mom's this, my mom's that, my pastor's this, my best friend's this. Then you start to mimic. What do I want to be? You're usually picking that off of someone else you've seen or done, right? Not too many people pick a profession that nobody they know has done it. You know, like my daughter's a nurse, my wife's a nurse, right? My dad was a cop. I went to school originally to be a cop. You know, those kinds of things. You know, you can trace it back to somebody who's supposed to. So people do what they see. If you see me leading the right way, you see me treating people the right way. Perfect example. When I started this most recent team, I had a guy, every word out of his mouth was an F. It was the F bomb this, F bomb that, F bomb this, F bomb that. I didn't correct him. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything to him. Over a period of time, he found out, oh, I go to church. Over a period of time, oh, I'm training to be a pastor. Oh, over a period of time, I'm a leadership coach. Right? Just all these conversations come up. After 6 months, I never heard the F bomb anymore. Right? I will slip up and say cuss words every now and then. But this dude with every other freaking word was effing. Right? But just being around me, he was like, this dude don't talk like this. I probably shouldn't talk like this around him. Now, everybody else, you went out in the hallway, he was a sailor. Right? But just around, so you'll do that. If you see me treating people right, like you guys notice, I make sure everybody cleans the trash. Right? The janitors know. If I ask for that tote to be out here on the weekend, they're going to bring it because they know I'm doing that for them. I'm not expecting them to clean up after us. Right? So it's just if you treat people right, then you guys start treating people right. The lady found out we were selling t-shirts. She's like, I'll buy one. I'll help you. She came in that day, handed me $10 and bought a t-shirt. Right? She don't know what this club is from Adam. Right? Because she wants to support what we're doing because she sees how we treat the school and she sees how we're acting. The last one we're going to go over, which is what I think a lot of you are kind of here for, especially in college, and that is the law of legacy. You know, lasting value. What do you want to leave behind? Do you go into every situation hoping that you leave it better than you found it?
You're going for revenge or something.
Huh?
You're going for revenge or retribution. I would want to be a better than balance.
I would say, as a leader, if you went in for revenge or retribution, you're probably not a very good leader.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from, but you have to think about it like that. You know, when I come into these sessions, I'm hoping that every one of us leave today better than we came in. You know, a lot of people think they like to compare themselves. And you guys have heard me say this before, but who is the only person you should ever compare yourself to?
So,
Yourself when?
yesterday.
Yourself today. When I wake up tomorrow, am I better for what I did yesterday? And if every day I'm just a little bit better, you can't compare yourself to anybody else in this room. You don't know their life. You don't know their situation. Did I do something today to be better? John teaches his daily 5. If you ever hear anything John Maxwell talks about, he does these 5 things every single day. Any of you have done any individual coaching with me, at some point, this will be your homework. Right? Read every day. Write every day. 5 every day. Think every day. I want to ask you guys something. When was the last time you went to a desk, put a blank piece of paper and an ink pen, no phone, no TV, nobody else in the room, you just sat there for 15 minutes? Can you do it?
I mean, I journal all the time.
Have you ever sat down at a desk, a blank piece of paper and a pen, and for 15 minutes did nothing?
Oh,
We don't take time to think together. All we do is react. I was listening to, I told you about Change Your World. I bought it this morning on audiobook because I had to drive to South County. And I started listening to it. When John, he's 78 now, I think. When he was 27 years old, a lady in the office walked up and handed him a book. The greatest story ever told. She knew he liked her. Thank you so much. He opens it up, page after page. Nothing written in this book. Completely blank. He looks at the lady and he says her name in the book. I can't remember her name. Would say, Liz, I really appreciate the gift, but I don't understand. The book is blank. She said, go back to the first page. He goes back to the first page, and I believe the story goes, she hand wrote, this is your story. Write it the best you can. Something along those lines. You write your own story, right? So he went home and he's like, okay, I'm going to do that. So every day he started journaling. He writes 15 minutes every day, no matter what. 15 minutes. He's now written 105 books. That was his start, writing books. Okay. Ask questions. How many of us really stop and just ask questions? Do we really want to learn? Okay. If you spend 1 hour a day learning something, it takes 5 years to be an expert. That's what he teaches. Where do you want to be? Okay. Joe asked me the other day in the meeting. He said, "Hey, water plants, electrical grids, those kinds of things. How do you get into that business?" Okay. So I started giving answers, and I realized I gave him a crappy answer. I went back and I kicked myself in the butt. I was like, "That's not the answer he wanted." If I had it to do over again, I would have said, "Joe, I really don't 100% know, but here's what we need to do. Let's go online and let's find people that have that job, and let's ask them to go to lunch." John has what he calls a learning lunch every month with somebody, and there's 7 questions that he asks, and you can look it up. We can talk about it another time. But that's the best way to learn is, what do you want to do? You want to be a college professor. Okay, what does it take to be a college professor? Well, let's go ask a college professor what it takes. You want to be a doctor. Well, let's go ask a doctor. What does it take to be a doctor? Right? That would have been a much better answer to give you now that I look back on it. Okay, so that, and what legacy do we want to leave behind? Okay. Any questions on any of those areas? Kind of ballpark, big picture stuff, but you kind of see, yes.
You're saying, right? What would you write about? Like, would you have like a topic that you would write about every day, or?
There's different ways of going about it. One of the things that I taught Liz to write at the end of every day is something positive. What did I do today? Okay. A lot of people, when they go to bed, their mind can't stop running. I'm one of them. I used to always sleep with a notebook beside my bed because I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, I got to get this done tomorrow. And then I couldn't fall back asleep because I was afraid I'd forget it. So I put a notepad beside my bed and I would just write down, don't forget, whatever. I suggest writing down, and John suggests, you can look it up and Google it, what did I do well today? Did I help anybody? Did I do something from somebody that there's no way they can return that favor? And I go ahead and plan my day for tomorrow.
And also, the other one that you have me do is, what haven't you, uh, which goal have you not achieved today and why?
Right. So if you had something planned for today and you didn't get it done, okay, that's fine. That's my number one goal tomorrow. So now I don't have to go to bed beating myself up over it. Give myself a realistic reason. I got too busy, or I got called here, or the dog was sick, this or whatever. Justify it, and it becomes your number one priority tomorrow. Right? So, read about something you want to learn. Write in a journal. I'm big on gratitude. 3 gratifications, 3 things I'm thankful for today. Anything. He writes like he's writing books. He journals. Just anything. Okay. Do you know the difference between a dream and a goal?
A dream is your end goal?
Maybe. A goal is your dream written on paper. If I have a dream and I never write it on paper, it stays a dream. When I write it down, it becomes a goal. So, just write those kinds of things down. The big one is read files. Do you keep your journals? I hear pastors all the time that I talk to, they'll look back 10 years at their journals. What was I thinking on March 27th in 2000? Go back and look at it. Another thing they teach is when I talk to you about sitting down for 15 minutes and just write what comes to mind. Even if it makes no sense, just write it down. Sky's blue, grass is green, birds are chirping, they're loud, whatever. Start writing it down. And do it every single day. And then after 6 months, go back and look, and it'll tell a story. Eventually, it'll start telling a story. So just that. If you put things down on paper, it solidifies them. And it also, it just allows you to, I don't know, it's like making things visible. Yeah. Right? And the big one is ask questions.
I feel like I do that a little too much.
Huh?
I feel like I do that a little too much.
You can never ask too many questions. Right? Never ask too many questions. If you feel like you're starting to ask too many questions, then here's the final question to ask. Thank you for your time. How can I add value? That will take away any thought of, John Maxwell tells a story about meeting John Wooden for the first time. You can't get on John Wooden's schedule. John Wooden said, you can meet me at this diner for 30 minutes. That's all the time I have for you. John flies out to California. He goes, John Wooden was the famous basketball coach at UCLA. John had 3 pages of legal pad questions that he wanted to ask. They made it to 2 in 3 hours. And John Wooden eventually said, why don't you come over to the house and we'll keep working on it? Right? Don't be afraid to have questions ready to ask, but always end with thank you and how can I add value? Right? So if you see this circle, this all comes back to I've got to be able to learn and give back to you, and that's what leadership is all about. Any other questions on that? We got about 15, 20 minutes? No? All right. So the law of the lid. I want to go a little bit more into the law of the lid this week, and it's really unpack it since it's our starting point next week. So as I mentioned, the law of the lid is very simple. But it's first in the book because it's the most important, I think. I've only met John once. I have met him. I have shook his hand. I have got his autograph on 16 Laws of Communication. So I have met him in person. So the law of the lid. If I ask you right now, you're going to start a business tomorrow. On a scale of 1 to 5, how good do you think you are at running a business right now?
I mean, I've started it's like
Sure. What do you think?
Tomorrow?
Yep.
Like what type of business?
We're just going to start a leadership coaching business tomorrow, you and I.
Yes. 6.
On a scale of 1 to 5?
Oh, you said 1. I think so 1.
That's confidence.
Why am I teaching this class?
Say maybe 3.5.
Okay, so you're a 3.5. Okay. If you were to start a leadership business tomorrow, where would you rank yourself as far as I could start a business tomorrow, run it successfully, and get off the ground? 2. Okay. Our expectation when we go into business is this. But if my lid as an individual is a 2, how in the world do I expect my business to be a 5? And if my lid as an individual is a 3.5, how do I ever expect my business to be a 5? Okay. That goes back to, have I learned enough and have I received enough, right? So that's why you're here. That's why you're taking these courses. That's why you're taking these classes. Because your business can only grow as much as you are. Okay? Very seldom do you see somebody that is a 2 that's going to run an 8 or a 10 business. Okay? It's only going to go as far as they can take it. Unless they're smart enough to get out of the way. Unless somebody else do it. Right? But then that's a form of raising your lid as well, being smart enough to realize other people need to be doing it. So, if you were to take a 5-gallon bucket, eventually you fill the 5-gallon bucket, right? But what happens if you're pouring out of a 10-gallon bucket? What if I switched it and I took a 5-gallon bucket and I started pouring into the 10? But I could still keep coming, right? So you have to think about that. What can I do to grow myself from the 2 to become the 3? And then when I'm at 3, what can I do to grow to a 4? And as I'm doing that, then you'll see your business goes with you. Anybody heard of Zig Ziglar? Probably know one of the most famous leadership experts like John Maxwell. He's passed on with the Lord now. His thing was, if you get enough people where they want to go, they will get you where you want to go. Right? If you get enough people where they want to go, one of the biggest misnomers that I think in leadership is managers are always, well, if I make my team better than me, they'll replace me. That is a very selfish, conceited way to think as a manager. My job is to make my team better than me. That way, when it comes time for promotion, they're not afraid to promote me because they got their next person already ready. Progressive planning. We did it all the time. Who is next? Who is next? Who is next? Right? A manager that looks at somebody and says, oh, no, I don't want to do that for you, is afraid of their own job, and that's not a good leader. A good leader wants you to be better than them. I want all of you to be better than me. 100%. What makes you a 2 and not a 3?
I just don't have the confidence that I have the knowledge to start it by tomorrow.
You don't have the tools in your tool belt, right? But you're taking the steps. You're in school. You're in classes. You're learning about leadership by reading books. You're doing podcast reviews. You're watching shows or whatever. So you're taking the steps to raise your lid. Okay? You've got to know yourself to be yourself. You've got to be yourself to improve yourself. You've got to improve yourself to get away, right? If you're honest with yourself and I'm a 2 or a 3, we can work with that all day. But if you walk around thinking you're a 5 and you're a 2, there's nothing we can do about that because I can't teach you. I was the 5 that was really a 1.5. I got where I went by blood, guts, and glory. I didn't get anywhere by being a leader, right? And eventually you'll plateau. Eventually it'll be, all right, that's as far as you can go, right? So one of the things it talks about here was the specific skills. Like you don't have the skills to do it, okay? That's why you're in school. The other one was, strategic planning. One of the things I've talked to Justin about in our one-on-one, Liz in our one-on-one is I am super big about planning, right? Liz gave me this weird look when I was like, well, have you talked to UNSL yet? Have you applied? Do you even know what requirements you need to get into that school? I'm only in my second semester. Yeah, but what if the next semester you take 4 classes that don't transfer? Right? Strategic planning. Where do I want to be? Right? Where do I want to go? And am I on the right path to get there? And if I'm not on the right path to get there, who do I know that can get me on the right path to get there? Confidence. Okay? The fear of confidence. Well, this is as good as I'm ever going to be. This is just as good as it gets. You're right. But with that mindset, if you fail to plan, everybody finish it?
Plan to fail.
Plan to fix. Right? I got let go from a job in 2016. 100% mistake. I was made an example of. Okay? I admitted the mistake. Yes, this is what I said. This is what happened. Legal made an example out of it. Okay? I knew right then that's enough. I'm done with people. I'm done with backstabbers. You know, what do I want to do? I knew right then I've always wanted to be a coach. I've always wanted to be a teacher. So I set out and I said, okay, if you want to be a professor, big boy, look in the mirror. What does it take to be a professor? So I started researching. If I want to be at a community college, I got to do this. If I want to be at a 4-year university, my chances are this. If I want to be a dean or I want to be a chancellor or something like that, I got to have this. So I laid out my path. This is what I need to do. Then I started meeting with people that are going to get me there. How do I get there? Right? I went to the local community college. I found this team. Cool, that's a shot. When I found this team, it engaged me with the 4-year university. That team, which then engaged me to the next step, where I was able to get an internship at Boeing through former security dog presidents that were at Boeing that came back to interview for internships. Then I went back. Who can I meet in my internship that was going to help me get there? So I had informational interviews with all these different managers, all these different people, getting my name out there, building that network. When it came time after my internship, when I went back to apply, I had people on my side. Yes, this guy did a great job during his internship, whatever, So start building it now, right? Who do I know at Webster? Who do I know at Rolls-Holman? I met the CCDC president. If that's where I decide to go to school, then I'm going to stay in touch with him. And I'm going to keep commenting with him. Maybe once every 2 or 3 months, I'll send an email or I'll send a text or something like that. Then when I get to school, that's the first person I'm going to look up. Hey, I'm here, man. Let's get rolling. It's just who's going to help me get there, right? So confidence may be the fear of taking a risk. Most every one of you guys, I will say to you, what does failure mean to you? Give me an example of failure. Right? John wrote a book called Failing Forward. Failure is not an end all. Failure just means you start over, but this time you start over from a better place. Right? Failure is when you stop and you're afraid to take that next step. You're afraid to risk. That's failure. When you become with a complacent mindset, well, this is just as good as it gets. Okay? Limiting mindset, that's failure. Your parents told you growing up, you can be anything you want to be. And it was a cliche. Can you be anything you want to be? I wanted to play center field for the St. Louis Cardinals. I didn't get out of a truck today, and I ain't got on a red jacket. It didn't happen. Right? God gives each of us a skill, whatever it may be. We can take that and we can be anything we want. Right? So don't limit your mindset. I always tell people, don't tell yourself no. Everybody's like, oh, I'm not qualified. I can't apply for that job. What if I tell you?
Do it anyway.
Of course you're not going to get the job. You just told yourself no. Now be realistic. You're an associate degree seeker at a community college. I wouldn't probably apply to be CEO of Time Warner. right? But stretch yourself. If you're in a job and there's a step up above, don't tell yourself no, make them tell you no. Get in the room. Get in the room, I'll get you the job. We will talk about interviews and we'll talk about that. I'll get you the job. You just get in the room. I've never interviewed for a job I didn't get. Out prepare the other people. And I've talked to you guys about that, but anyway, don't have a limiting mindset.
So let me ask you,
Yes.
how do you get out of that limiting mindset? Is it through like journaling and
Journaling, everyday reading you can self-help books or reading different, listening to podcasts. It's a mind shift. You know, it takes 30 days to break a habit. You got to do something every single day. Every single day. You know, I am this, I am this, I am this. Every single day. Just like we're talking about chopping down the tree.
Yep.
If I walk by a tree and I take an axe and I hit it one time and I expect that tree to fall, but when I walk by tomorrow, I hit it again. And then I walk by tomorrow, I hit it again. And I walk by tomorrow and I hit it again. Now I look up and now I've chopped down the tree. It's about enough self-confidence that you don't become conceited. Right? One of the things John Maxwell talks about in public speaking, he always starts from the audience. Okay? When you go to give a speech, are you there for you or are you there for the people that are receiving your speech? Okay. There are a lot of speakers that are there for them. They're there to make money. They're there because they think they're famous and they need to put on a show, and they last very short term. But if you're there for the other people, like if I went into this meeting and every single meeting was about me, you guys will quit coming. But if I make it about you, I want to make sure you're learning something. I want to make your successor. You're going to get something out of it. Okay? But the mindset that can hold you back, you know, we'll brainstorm things on personal growth. Like the next book I would recommend for you would be The 15 Laws of Growth, talking about personal growth and the different things you can do. You know, if I do a lot of mind mapping, right? If you look at the mind map I created this morning for my business, it would cover from like that wall all the way down to here. I just break everything down so far, and like I make him yell at me. We'll talk about something, and I'll be like, well, you thought of this, and then you thought of this. You know, I always tell people 5 whys. If you tell me no, you got to tell me why 5 times. No, well, why? Okay, well, when you tell me that, I'm going to say, okay, but why? And then when you tell me that, I'm going to be, okay, but why? And then I'm going to go, but why not? And if you're not the person that can give me the answer, then give me to the person that can, because I'm not going to settle for no. That kind of thing. But you just have to, small positives. What's something you did good today? And tonight when you go to bed, write that down. Tomorrow, what is something I did good today? Write it down. You got to build that muscle. Right? You know, we're all here because it started out with, we did leadership positions in the club. Come on in. You can come in. So we're all here because we're starting with leadership positions for the club, right? And some of you are like, well, I really would like to be a leader for the club, but I don't know enough to be a leader. I'm kind of insecure, that kind of thing. So I was like, all right, let's teach you to be leaders, right? So what I want you guys to think about this week, each one of you that said that had a limiting mindset. I would really like to be a leader, but Okay? And I want you to think about that but. And I want you guys to write that down. Okay? I really wanted to be a leader, but that right there. Because that's your lid. That's your lid right now. Does anybody know the reason I started this club when I did? Anybody ever?
Like tell you, this is leadership next.
Yep.
Because it came out of the system.
Possibly.
To those of you,
Yes.
Did you see potential leadership?
I saw a potential leader in two.
A lot of them? Yes.
Why did I start this club?
Two. You seen you could influence, and you could.
Because I had somebody tell me she didn't have any friends on campus. And I asked her what club she belonged to. And she said, well, there's not one. And I said, well, then start one. Her exact words were me, oh no, I can't do that. And what was my next word?
Why?
Why? Well, I don't know anything about that. Well, why? Why don't you know anything about it? Well, I don't even know where to start. Well, why don't you know where to start? Who did you ask?
There's a lot of whys.
And she said, well, I just don't have the answer. I said, cool, then we're starting. And she went, what? I said, yeah, let's start a club. Here we are. That's why she's your first president. Don't tell me unless you mean it. And now, how many friends you got? And you had none. I'm going to quit school because I'm friends with nobody. I don't even want to be here.
I didn't say I was going to quit school though.
You were there. You were there. Right? Somebody I'd really like to start a business. Are you sure? You want to start a business? What is it? What's your obstacles? What's stopping you from starting?
Oh, we've already been there.
Huh?
We've been there, me and you.
I'm not calling you out. What's stopping you? Well, I've never done it before. Well, why not? Well, I've never had the money or the opportunity. Well, how much money do you need? Well, I don't know. I've never looked at it. Well, how do you know if you can start a business or not if you don't even know how much money it's going to take? Well, I've got an idea. All right. What's your idea? Well, now that you've given me your idea, I'm going to give you 5 questions about that idea. Limiting mentality. Never tell yourself no. Because if you tell yourself no, that's the answer. Well, I'm afraid to get up in a room and talk because I don't know how to prepare. Why do you not know how to prepare? Well, I've never studied it. If you want to get up in front and talk in front of people, why have you never studied how people talk? I want to learn to play the guitar. You don't go to the store and buy a guitar and come out as Cece from Poison, right? You don't come out as Eddie Van Halen, right? You got to start with a pick. No, that didn't sound good. But what did John say? If you do something for 1 hour a day for 5 years, you become an expert. If I put a guitar in your hand and I said every day, regardless of whatever it is you do, play this guitar 1 hour a day. In 5 years, when we come back, what do you think you're going to be as a guitarist? But how many of you guys have put 1 hour a day into being a leader? You're all here. You say you want to be leaders. But have you put 1 hour a day into it? Okay. I just asked you to start with an hour a week. Liz, I'm going to use you as an example. 42 days ago, you had no idea Archer Defender could even be a team. 42 days, how much have you learned?
A ton.
Have you spent an hour a day?
Not a day.
Exactly. But think about where you guys are today compared to where you were 40 days ago. You're getting ready. You did a hackathon, for Christ's sake. Within 30 days, 28 days, you did a hackathon. And within 45 days, you're going to compete in an NCL. And you didn't even know what NCL was. You guys didn't even know what open source intelligence was until last Friday. You guys have no clue if I say to you what enumeration is. You guys don't know what enumeration is yet. You will Friday night. So that's what he's talking about. Pick something that you want and spend an hour a day. Start out at 10 minutes a day. Can you spend 10 minutes reading this book a day? You know, maybe next week, can you bump it up to 15? The next week, can you bump it up to 20? But now you're done with the first book. What's the next? Does anybody know the next book they're going to read?
15 Laws of Blood.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody know the next book we're going to teach? I've already told you the next book we're going to teach. And I've already told you the third book we're going to teach. You're sitting right back there on a card. I've already bought it. Because I did my law of process and my law of navigation. I know where you want to go, and I know what I think I can do to get you there. But I've already done it. I already know after this book, we're going to go and develop a leader within you. It's about developing yourself as a leader. Then we're going to go into the 21 qualities of a leader. And where we want to go. That's some of the things we'll go over. So the way the mastermind will work next week, if you guys look at your packet, you guys are going to read you're going to read the chapter of the law of the lid. Read as much as you want, but we can only go over probably 6 or 7 chapters out of the book, right? So next week, we'll come in. You guys have read it, and we'll just go over these questions. You know, what was the difference between the McDonald's brothers and Ray Kroc? There's a huge difference in the leadership and the way McDonald's was founded. You'll read that in the chapter. You know, then you've got to ask yourself, what are the sacrifices you're willing to make to raise your lid? You know, not to pick on Justin, but Justin is really, this is really where Justin's sitting right now. He's a dad, he's a husband, he's a full-time worker. Where in his life does all of this fit? Now, what sacrifice are we willing to make? You know, and then what's stopping you from achieving that goal? What is your obstacle? What is it? And what do you do to overcome that obstacle? You know, so we'll go through and we'll start asking all these questions. And every chapter has one of these. You guys have a PDF of the whole book. Brant, I'll make sure, if I didn't email you, I'll make sure that I email you. We need to make sure he's in the leadership chat. Because if he's not in there, that's why I didn't email him. But that's where we'll go. We'll start going through the law of the lid. And then we'll go through the law of the process, law of influence, those types of things. But from this point on, it's going to be, I'm going to ask a facilitating question and then we'll all talk about it. I won't be standing up here and just lecturing for 45 minutes. From this point on, it's a beach ball. I'll throw out a topic, we'll talk about it. I'll throw out another topic, we'll talk about it. And then where the topics go, they'll lead us. Sometimes we'll get to 2 of the questions. Sometimes we'll get to 3 of the questions. Sometimes we'll get to none of the questions. We'll squirrel off into something and we'll look up in the time will be up. And then at the end of 8 weeks, we're going to be 8 weeks better as leaders than we were today. Any questions? All right. Thank you for your time today. I know some of you have class. Thank you. Thanks, Travis. I got to go get Jacob's paperwork. Did you sign them, or do you need to redo them? What do you need to do? All the ones you said you think you know from.
Oh, you have any more fun? You gotta turn back.
Huh? Oh, I think,
So then, like,
it'd be on the front desk, I can read it.